Okay, Tina, it looks like we're ready to get started, everyone. We'll call this meeting, as I refer to, the Nevada Youth Legislature Board. However, officially, this is the third meeting of the 2023-2024 interim for the Board of Directors for the Corporation for Public Benefit to administer to the Nevada Youth Legislature. Again, as we refer to it as the Nevada Youth Legislature, or NYL Board, with a little music in the background. I'm pleased to welcome our new secretary, who's already jumped in with great enthusiasm, Shauna McManus, and would you please call the roll?
Senator Harris,
Present.
Senator Scheibel,
Present.
Assemblywoman Mosca,
She's en route.
Assemblywoman Torres,
Here.
former Senator Woodhouse,
Here.
Mr. Okuda Lim is absent excused, Chair Wiener.
Present. Thank you and welcome. On to agenda item number 2, public comment. At this time, we'll open our meeting to the public for any questions or comments that they might want to share. Do we have anyone in the north? I see none in the south. Are there any on the telephone?
The public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. Therefore, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes for our last meeting, which was January 5th of this year, 2024. And let's look at agenda item number 3. You have the minutes from that meeting in your packet. And I would accept a motion, if you've had the opportunity to review, to approve the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Senator Harris. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Senator Woodhouse. Do we have any discussion, comments, questions? There being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Please note unanimous consent among all those present. On to agenda item number 4, approval of our budget for fiscal year 24-25. Mr. Killian was very gracious to present this budget to us at the earlier meeting in January, and we asked for additional time so that we could scrutinize it, and not scrutinize him, make it very clear, but to take a closer look at the budget so we understood it a little bit better. And I had conversation with Tina to see if she would pursue some questions that clarity that I was seeking, and she provided great comfort in what the numbers look like and the flexibility of unexpected monetary needs that we might have. So do we have any? I have one question of Mr. Killian, if I may. Mr. Killian, the one thing that is always a concern and would bring comfort would be if indeed with even these projected cushions that you and staff have created for the budget going forward for like accounts, in the 2-year cycle, 2 years from now, if something were to show up or happen, an unexpected inflationary bump, would we have the opportunity to seek additional funds to maintain the health of the program?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Legislative Counsel. The short answer is yes. There are 2 options available to the board. One is the appropriations funding that the board receives come out of the requests for the legislative fund, and the director of the Legislative Counsel Bureau has discretion to redirect money within the legislative fund as necessary. So if the board were to get into a situation where, for example, airfares increased more than expected, and there was not sufficient authority in the budget as it currently exists to cover those increases, the board could always ask the director of LCB to redirect redirect some of that legislative fund money to the youth legislature. That wouldn't require action by IFC or any other body. That's something that's within the director's discretion, so it could happen relatively quickly. The other point I wanted to make is one of the benefits of approving a biennial budget 2 years out, like what's before the board right now, is that gives the director freedom to include those projected figures in the legislature's own budget request for the 25 legislature for the upcoming biennium. So as opposed to this past session where I think some projection was done, but the requests weren't fully made for the entire biennium in advance, and part of that was also spending down some of the balance that had built up for the youth legislature over COVID. This approach allows the legislature to plan ahead and reserve the full amount of needs for the youth legislature in advance.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions? Okay, any comments? I'd accept a motion to approve the budget as proposed.
So moved.
Yes, Assemblywoman Torres.
Second.
Second from Senator Woodhouse. Any additional last shot questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Please note unanimous support among members present. We'll now move on to let me get my information here. We also are working on a bylaw proposal that I had requested, and Mr. Killian was wonderful in proposing the draft language, and this deals with the concerns I had when we are approached with collaborations, requests for collaborations, and we need to review it more, and I didn't want, as chair, through this wonderful position you were so kind to allow me to serve in, didn't want to have the responsibility of making those decisions without further discussion. So Mr. Killian has proposed, and you will see this, an Article 8 for our bylaws, the proposal. And Mr. Killian, if you would present it, since we didn't have the details of this at the last meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Legislative Counsel. So I'll start by noting there are 3 parts of this document that differ from what was before the board at its previous meeting, all at the request of the board. The first is you'll see an amendment to Section 5.8 of the NYL Foundation's bylaws. This was the requested change to revise the title of the staff member who assists the youth legislature from program coordinator to program facilitator. The other 2 changes are located in Article 7, both in Section 8.2. As previously presented, paragraph C of Section 8.2 had effectively a weighing provision where the board would have to weigh the benefits against the costs of any collaboration proposal before deciding whether to proceed. As discussed by the board in its previous meeting, this has been revised to, rather than having to weigh benefits against costs, require that the board determine that some articulable benefit would accrue to the foundation and the youth legislature as a result of the agreement. And then the third change is there has been a paragraph D added that requires the board to consult with legal counsel before entering into an agreement, as was discussed by the board during its previous meeting. Just as an overview of what this Article 8 does, Section 8.1 of Article 8 would generally prohibit any director of the youth legislature board or any officer, youth legislator, or a member of the staff from binding the organization to any agreement on collaboration without the consent of the organization itself. Section 8.2 sets the parameters for how the board can make the decision to enter into a collaboration agreement with an entity. The general requirements are that the board would have to determine that no public money which was appropriated to the foundation would be spent for any purpose other than supporting the youth legislature. 2, that the board would have to determine that the agreement would strengthen or enhance the activities of the foundation and the youth legislature and result in greater opportunities for learning and growth for youth legislators. 3, the board would have to determine that an articulable benefit would accrue to the foundation and the legislature. And 4, the board would have to consult with legal counsel before making the decision to enter into the agreement. And then finally, Section 8.3 clarifies that nothing within this bylaw provision would prohibit the directors, officers, youth legislators, or members of staff from having informal discussions about potential collaborations or sharing information about the activities of the youth legislature, but rather just that any actual decision on that topic would have to be made by the board itself. And at this point, Madam Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions you or the other members may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Killian. Any questions? This was a major concern, as I said earlier, that I voiced at the last meeting. And does this respond to some of the questions and suggestions that board members brought forth at that time? Is everybody pretty okay with this? Mm-hmm. Okay, I would entertain a motion to accept the very articulate, on-point language that Mr. Killian has proposed to address our concerns. A motion? Senator Woodhouse looks like. Senator Woodhouse will accept.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we accept the changes in the bylaws as indicated by our legal staff, Mr. Killian.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second? Second. Assemblywoman Torres, any additional discussion, questions, comments? I'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Please note unanimous support among all members present. And Madam Secretary, please note that Assemblywoman Mosca has joined us. Thank you all. So now we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the kind of summary report of what we've been doing since we last met in the program itself. We had discussed in depth in prior conversations the scholarships. We do have the $1,000 scholarship that I lovingly and gratefully have the capacity to donate. Then we have the combined scholarship, the $2,500 scholarship, based on the board's recommendations from September to consolidate. And again, to refresh the record, I donated $250, Senator Woodhouse $750, Assemblywoman or Assemblymember Mosca $500, former youth legislator John Oglesby and his wife Tara $500, and Tina Ashdown, our program facilitator, $500. Tina, would you please update us on where we are?
Thank you, Chair. This is Tina Ashdown, Constituent Services Analyst and Program Facilitator, for the record. We have received 3 completed NYL scholarship applications. We are accepting applications until April 30th. I am open to any questions.
And a comment, Tina and I have talked about this because what we probably all of us have experienced in our own lives, deadlines for scholarship applications and other financial resources often under the crunch of the college experience, students often wait till they get closer to deadlines. So I'd like to ask Tina, what is the time, there's a reason for this, is the time frame from when we opened it to closing it April 30th? How much time have we given them?
We started on February 1st, so that's 3 full months.
Yeah, so my thought, members of the board, is that we might start later and end April 30th, or start earlier and end sooner. That window of 3 months seems possibly too long, and they forget even with reminders. And we can look to see what a traditional window might be for scholarships, unless board members already know that, but I think it's smaller than 3 months. And so would it be all right with the board? What are your thoughts about shortening up the time frame for application? Senator Woodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The credit union that I belong to does have a scholarship program, and their window is typically 2 months. They opened towards the end of February and they just closed. So that's about 2 months that theirs is open. And they have plenty of applications, but of course they're open to everyone. So of course they'd have a lot more.
Thank you. And I have heard from youth legislator alums of the program, not current, well, actually one current one, who are interested in applying, and they're now just realizing the deadline's approaching. So I don't know what our final will be. What are the thoughts of a 2 month window? Does that sound, yes, Assemblywoman Torres?
Hi, Solomon Torres for the record. I think that it makes sense to narrow down that record because I think 3 months is too long. That's longer than a quarter for students, and so I think usually about 2 months is a quarter. When would be the goal deadline for students to be turning it in?
I'm sorry.
Like what time of year would we like to see them turned in? So would we want it to keep it the same? That it's
We probably, thank you for asking, what would be the ideal deadline date? We need enough time, and not to be specific, because I don't have specifics exactly, but we need enough time that we have them all, and then we have our committee that chooses to review, and then notify them, and sometimes we get a little hung up in hearing back from them the name of the school, especially if they're just graduating now, they'll qualify, the name of the school where we send the check, because they don't get it, the school does. So sometimes there's a lag there too. So may I ask Ms. Ashdown, what would your thoughts be, because you're the one, we're in touch, what would you consider a viable end date, and then we could back it up 2 months?
I was just looking in the NRS to see if we have a certain date that we have to have it give them, but I don't think there's a certain date. So it depends on how long the scholarship. We want to get it maybe a little earlier, maybe the end of March.
If it's okay with the board, thank you for your input. We'll sit down on a calendar because of holiday, because of spring break and Easter and so on. We'll take a look. And to respond to your curiosity about that, the scholarships are not in statute. This was an add-on after this was created in law. The scholarships are in addition to the program because they're voluntary. So that's why it's not stated in the statute. Okay, with the permission of the board then, we wouldn't take a vote on it anyway, but with the permission of the board, I'll sit down with Tina and we'll condense to approximately a 2-month window next time. And we will be reaching out to see which board members would like to review the scholarship applications. Once we close the deadline, we'll be reaching out for some assistance. So if that works for everybody, that's what we will do. So then we'll move on to what we're doing, what we've been doing since we last met in the program. In February, we had a meeting of the NYL, and they elected their representative to the Nevada Association of Student Councils, who helps consult and provide recommendations for the student member on the State Board of Education. And that youth legislator is Youth Legislator Chen. We provide now a half of an activity credit for that participation, and thanks to Senator Woodhouse and her energy around the Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education, we now have a northern delegate, Youth Legislator Regante, and 2 from the south, Youth Legislators Villatoro and Walsh, and then the alternate from the north is, here I'll get it, we don't have an alternate in the north because of the proportionate north-south. We have 2 alternates in the south. Youth Legislator Wynn and Youth Legislator Rios, and they also will receive a half of that activity credit for every day they served and provide service to that. Do you have any thoughts about this? I would love to hear how it worked, because the last time they hadn't participated yet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, it has been really exciting. The commission had its first meeting, and of course it was kind of a push because we had asked if we could have a student be a non-voting member. It wasn't in the language of the bill, and so our chair and Ms. Ashdown worked together to get a volunteer from the youth legislators. They selected their chair, and she came to the first meeting, and we all felt incredibly impressed. Well, and you were there too, weren't you, Assemblywoman? Just an incredible young lady, shared her personal stories, was not intimidated by 24 other people sitting around the table, all the way from business to the chancellor to legislators and superintendents and folks like that. And so the thought came up afterwards was, we need more than one student voice. And so now we will have two. Our next meeting for the commission is April the 23rd, and two of the youth legislators will be there. And at this meeting is when the commission will break into subcommittees to work on 4 different major topics within K-12 educational reform. So we probably should have 4 students so that there's 1 in each, but maybe we can kind of have them shift around a little bit, because everyone really wants to hear what their perspectives are of what we're talking about. And I was so glad that we had come up with this idea, kind of stretching the limitations of the bill in a very positive way. And so I was thrilled, and maybe Assemblywoman Moscow would like to add something, since she's a member of the commission as well.
Thank you so much, yes, and thank you, Chair. And yes, it was really, what I noticed was we would talk about issues, and then they would look to the youth legislator and ask, what do you think? And so I also saw a lot of people taking notes based on what she was saying, and she just fit right in. So I think it was a really good addition, because it shows that we're using that student voice to make policy, and I think that that's going to make a difference. So really excited there will be more at the next one.
So I have a question. We did, they voted as to who their representatives would be and who their alternates would be. And again, we don't have an alternate in the north, because the north would only participate if it's virtual anyway. But we do have 2 alternates in the south. And would it be of interest to the commission that we contact the 2 alternates to see if they would be willing? I mean, if there's anything where you take, and I don't know, they don't have a vote, you've mentioned, but if there's anything where there's a weightiness to their involvement, that's the 2 delegates. The 2 alternates could certainly participate in group discussions and give input. So I'm just asking if you would like us to reach out to the alternates to see if either or both might be interested in attending as well.
This is Joyce Woodhouse for the record. I think that's perfectly fine. As I said, we're going to break into 4 subcommittees, and it'd be wonderful to have a student sitting there, just, being part of the discussion. We're at a high school for all of our meetings, so there's plenty of space. So that would not be an issue. What I will do, if this board would like to do that, I will let the Department of Ed know that you're going to follow up on that. I know that our facilitator has the names of the 2 students that are going to be there. We would just need to know the names of the other 2. So if you could just send those to me.
And if that's all right with the board, then I will reach out to the alternates. And then, because the others were the first 2 were selected as delegates, are they identified with a nameplate or something where it says delegate or something like that?
They are all identified with a name tent. And we didn't put non-voting on it.
No, I was thinking, but you.
We could put a student rep on it or something like that.
Or you could put
Or
delegate,
NYL.
delegate, and alternate delegate.
Okay.
So that at least because that's how they were chosen by their peers, and they still have a voice, but that would distinguish the priorities that the NYL had with their selection.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
So Tina, based on the discussion and the head nodding, let's reach out to our alternates to see if either or both might be able to participate in that meeting and those conversations and the subcommittee work and all the details, and see if they might be able to participate.
I'm sure they would love that opportunity. Tina Ashdown for the
Thank
record.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Thank you. So moving on then to that was the meeting, and there, FYI, I distinguish meetings versus trainings, even though they're the same day. Meetings precede because they involve open meeting law requirements. Anytime you'll see an NYL meeting, it's because they're voting. And so you'll see a lot of that in the second year because they're voting on their bill proposals and narrowing them down. And so we had the training that day on town hall meetings. We had an amazing shift, and Tina and I work on these to up-level the engagement as much as we can in every way possible. So we revised the activity, which would typically, historically, it's been, we'd have two scenarios, and youth legislators would be selected to be the town, the youth legislator running the meeting, and here's someone in the audience, and we do a scenario. We do two in the south and one in the north. We've shifted it so that all the youth legislators are now involved in accountability and message sharing. So when they break into their groups, the groups in the there's three in the south and one in the north, they each had the opportunity here. It was lovely to listen to them because they couldn't sit back and just watch. They all were accountable for participating. Each shared what their introduction would be at their town hall meeting and what their concluding remarks would be. And then they learned from each other. And so it was wonderful to listen to people who tend to be a little bit shy during the regular trainings, to be forthright with their comments and be honored for what they were sharing, and it up-leveled the participation. So we've already now adopted this model, and have already planned how we engage them for tomorrow's training, which will be on negotiation skills. And I will be in Carson City for that one, to sit in on a group up there and spend time with youth legislators up there. So in February, March, the assignment, the outside activity was a town hall meeting plan. Extraordinary participation. 20 of the 21 youth legislators turned in their plans, and the level of their engagement was, again, much higher. I know that sometimes Tina would get the email and forward it to me, or I would receive it, and it might not land in my email, so she had to make sure I got it. But they sent their plans. They are so immersed in wanting to do this. It's not just an outside activity. They are extraordinarily excited about the outreach, and some of their creative ideas go above and beyond a network television producer. I mean, they are amazingly creative in the things that they want to do. And so more so than, and I typically respond to each plan as it's submitted. Anything they turn in, I respond individually. But now it's a higher level of engagement because their questions and what they're offering are up-leveled from what we've seen historically. So their level of engagement is very high. The reports for their town hall meetings is coming up. Their deadline is the 20th of April. April 11th, again, is the one training we have in the entire 2 years that is done by an outside person. Historically, it's been Jeanette Bells, but she's retiring. So her partner is it Leah or Leah? Yeah, Leah Case. She will be presenting, and she'll be presenting it from Carson City. So I'm looking forward to meeting her. They will also, during their meeting, elect their officers for next year. So we've learned, and thank you to legal, we've learned, we thought it was okay that we did this once, at least once, that if they were interested, they would submit their name in advance so that we could put the name forward to the youth legislators. We're not, that's violation of the open meeting law, it gives it an edge, so we've let them know if they're interested to be prepared then to present their name to the whole body at the meeting. So several have indicated an interest. A couple have reached out to me that they're interested, and one of them asked me, what should I run for, which is not my purview. And I said, take a look at what the responsibilities are for each position, and he made a choice based on that. So it's just very interesting. Anyway, no vote required, so if it's okay with the board, any questions up to this point? Yes, Assemblywoman Mosca.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just had a comment. I saw lots of invites for town halls this past week. I saw some very successful ones. I heard from other youth peers around it. So just really want to give a shout out to all the youth legislators because I think it's going around and I saw some great graphics and they just really seem organized more this year. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I got more of a notice this year with them coming up.
I'm grateful and humbled beyond descriptors as how we continue to elevate the caliber of young people who want to participate in this program. So though we may not get a deluge of applications, because it is an extraordinary commitment, it is a huge commitment, and the people who do apply understand that, and they're willing, eager to elevate themselves in the training opportunities that we provide. So thank you for sharing that, because we don't always know that. So thank you. You're boots on the ground. Thank you. And so we're moving on now then to agenda item number 7, which is discussion of future agenda items and dates. So just as a little historical perspective, we have satisfied our statutory requirement for 2 board meetings in an interim. Legally, in statute, we only have to meet once every year in a 2-year interim. But we chose as a board, the board at the time felt it was much more important for us to meet at least twice a year so we could have this engagement, and I think most of us were part of that conversation, that we have a higher level of engagement and we feel more in touch with the activities of the program, and it's more real time for us. So, and we've already done the 2 for this calendar year, not just the term, but the calendar year. And so historically, we've been interested as a board to meet when they're having one of their annual trainings, either the inaugural or the midterm. We flipped this because of pandemic, where originally the first year, the initial training was the time in Carson City for 2 days. But with pandemic, we flipped that, and it made sense that now the 2 days in Carson City are the midterm training that leads right into the legislative session. So they learn about the legislative process and bill drafting. It's timely and complements what's going to follow their training. So we have an option to have a meeting but it would be, again, Carson City, August 6, 7, or we could schedule a 3rd meeting for this interim. Well, it wouldn't be. It would go into the next year, but the next meeting could be January of 2025. We also historically have a meeting the day of, in January, the day of a gathering, and then the chair and or vice chair present the BDR proposal to the board so that you know the work they've done through the fall. So what is the interest of the board if you're interested in having an August training, or move our next August board meeting and have our next board meeting in January, as we historically do, the day of a gathering in Las Vegas? What would be the pleasure of the board? Yes, Councilwoman Torres.
I could definitely speak to the necessity of us maintaining that board meeting that occurs in January, where we have them present that bill. I think it was helpful this last session because we knew what was coming, and then we could talk to our colleagues about, this is the bill of the legislature, and, kind of support the lobbying efforts of the youth legislature. So I think that was really helpful. As far as August, for me personally, it does get challenging with the start of school. But I know everybody else, so if I can't make it, I'm sure that you guys can.
Well, and again, it would, we could, this is the training that's in Carson City, so that's a factor too, so. Is everybody okay that our next meeting then would be in January, following the gathering in Las Vegas, which will be January 9th? Is that correct, Tina? Is that when the Las Vegas gathering is?
That's correct.
Yeah. So it would be following the gathering, as we've done before, and then they would present their measure. It's exciting to talk about because they haven't even processed their BDR proposals yet, and we're already talking about hearing the one that will go to the legislature. Kind of interesting. Yes, Simone Mosca.
Thank you so much, Chair. That makes sense to me, and would just, at least for me as a board member, would love to be kept updated. So if you want to invite us to any of the events, even if we don't have a meeting, then we can still know the program that's happening.
Gotcha. Okay. So Tina, let's make sure, based on that suggestion, that we do notify the board members about the activities, maybe send the itinerary for the August training in Carson City for any who might be up there for something else or might want to join us. It would be lovely to have board members there if they have that opportunity to show up and be part of the experience. You've been there before, I know. Senator Woodhouse is a staple in that training. So that's how we'll do it. It'll be an optional. We'll make the information available to board members. Thank you. For everybody then, let's put down our calendars and we'll keep you notified, but it would be the gathering here, the annual gathering, which is a social and a training experience. Remember, we teach them about social communication skills at this. January 9th would be our next board meeting. In that regard, are there any items that board members would like to include on the agenda? Anything showing up on your radar at this time? Councilwoman Torres.
Thank you. If we could talk about the recruitment for the upcoming cycle, because at that point, we'll start looking at who's going to replace the sitting youth legislators.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Tina, let's make sure we have something on the agenda about recruitment efforts and outreach. Thank you. Anything else? And that is perfect timing. Yes, Senator Woodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you have a date for the August?
Yes, August.
Your training and the gathering?
6th to 7th, and
August.
the gathering will be January 9th.
Yeah,
here
I
in
have
Las
that.
Vegas,
Thank you.
But 6th to 7th in Carson City. So moving on to agenda item number 8, are there any comments, questions, or anything else the board would like to discuss at this time? Then we'll move on to agenda item number 9, public comment. At this time, we'll open our meeting to the public for any questions or comments that they may have. Do we have anyone in the north? Doesn't look like it. Do we have any in the south? Anyone on the telephone?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. And before we adjourn today, under agenda item number 9, I want to extend again an ongoing, ever-present thank you to the Legislative Council Bureau, Constituent Services, to the Broadcast Production Services, to the Legal Division, for all of you, for ensuring the success and the flow and the effectiveness of our opportunity to do the business of the Nevada Youth Legislature. It is your contributions that make doing this work feasible and productive, and we appreciate you. There being no other business before the board, we are adjourned.